The Waikato business Discover Waitomo is the first to benefit from a government plan to protect so-called strategic tourism assets, with a $4 million grant to help it cushion the blow from COVID-19. The money is from the $400 million fund earmarked for a tourism sector recovery plan. It includes a scheme that identifies high-profile tourism operations that are key attractions for New Zealand that bring significant visitors to their region, along with widespread economic benefits. Discover Waitomo offers glowworm and caving tours, including blackwater rafting. And Tourism Minister Kelvin Davis announced its $4 million boost today, and he joins me now live. Good evening, Minister. Why Discover Waitomo for this money?
Well, they are a strategic tourism asset. They fit the criteria. Without them there, the region would well struggle. There's significant spillover benefits from Discover Waitomo into the local community. So, they fit the criteria, and we're very pleased to be able to support them. It's important that we do have a network of strategic tourism assets, because when international borders do reopen, we need to have these attractions open and available for visitors to enjoy, or else visitors would be coming here with nothing to do.
So how many jobs will it save at this particular operation?
This will save about 40 jobs, but the spillover benefits into the rest of the community may well save other jobs, and it's really important that people realise that this is not just about supporting an individual business, but also about the region and the community around them.
So, and what is the money being spent on?
Well, that's for them to...
Part of the application, though, Minister, they had to identify exactly what the money was going to be spent on. So did you see that part of their application?
No, so I haven't seen the application, but their application was recommended to myself and the other tourism recovery ministers, and so we were happy to support it. We know that it's going to create benefits for that particular region and for tourism across New Zealand in general.
Were they asked to apply? Because applications only opened today, so what process did they actually go through?
Yeah, so there is capacity for us as the tourism recovery ministers to hear urgent and ad hoc applications, and this fit the criteria. So, as I say, we were happy to support it.
So did they approach you before this scheme was even up and running?
Well, everyone, people knew that we had a strategic tourism assets program. They did approach us and, approached MB because they registered their interest when it was announced straight after the budget, and, the process has flowed on from there.
So had they exhausted every other financial avenue, which is also one of the criteria of the application?
Yeah, we're satisfied that they've met all the criteria in order to apply for this, and hence our satisfaction at that. We were happy to support them.
So how safe is the taxpayers' money in there? Because $4 million is not a small amount of money. So what are the obligations on that company as a result of getting that funding?
So they have to, they'll get the money every quarter. They need to make a quarterly declaration that they still need that money. So if the business thrives and goes gangbusters and they don't actually need the taxpayers' support anymore, then that money can be returned into the kitty to help other businesses.
So Grant Webster, who's the boss of Tourism Holdings that they own, Discover Waitomo, you're announced as your co-chair of the Tourism Futures Task Force. Is there any conflict of interest there? He's one of your co-chairs, and today his company is the first company to get money from this fund.
Well, look, the Tourism's Futures Task Force is about reimagining the future of tourism, and he has the leadership, the skills and the experience to work alongside his co-chair, Steve Chadwick, to make the right decisions about the future of tourism. So it had nothing to do with today's announcement. So
there's no conflict of interest, or no perceived conflict of interest?
No, I don't think so, because his business is one thing. That decision was made separately before we made the decision to appoint him as the co-chair.
Okay, because also part of the application process, the official application process that has gone up today, there's a box that you have to tick if there is a possible conflict of interest. Was that discussed before you granted the money?
Well, he wasn't appointed as the co-chair when the decision was made.
But was he a contender at that point?
Oh, there was a range of names in the mix, but the decision to appoint him as the co-chair along with Steve Chadwick was made after the decision to give them the $4 million to support their business.
How many other contenders were there for that job that he got?
Oh, there was a number. There was about a dozen.
Okay, so the application that you approved to be the first company to get money, I mean, how many others did you consider, how many other applications did you consider before choosing Discover Waitomo for the $4 million?
Well, there were at least two others. We would have liked to have made more announcements today, but unfortunately, due to bereavements with one member of a company, we couldn't do that today. So there are other companies that were hoping to make announcements, but they'll be made in the coming days.
So are there two other applications that have been approved?
There are a couple of other applications that have been approved, and there are more applications on the way.
And what value is going in funding to those two other companies?
Oh, look, I'm not going to announce that here and now with you, Lisa.
I understand you don't want to name the company, but can you just give us a ballpark figure? How much are they getting?
No, I'm not going to give you a ballpark figure, but what I will say is that each application is looked at upon its merits, and tailored solutions are made to the needs of each particular company.
So how much of that $400 million that's going into basically reviving tourism, how much is ring-fenced for these strategic assets?
Well, look, the bulk of it, so it was split into two parts. There's the Tourism Transitions Program, which will be a lesser part, but the strategic tourism assets, it's the bulk of the part. It depends on how many companies do apply and what their specific needs are. So we can't really put an exact figure on it, exactly how much will be used in the strategic tourism assets, because each company's needs will be different.
You must have had some projections though, so what are you anticipating of that $400 million? What are you going to put into strategic assets, roughly? What have you set aside?
Well, like I say, the bulk of it will go to the strategic tourism assets, but I'm not going to put an exact figure on it because it depends on the needs of each business.
So Discover Waitomo is quite a big entity, part of Tourism Holdings. You know, some of these big masthead assets, people anticipate that they will bounce back when we can get visitors. They're well-known operations. What about the smaller operators?
Well, it's about what is a strategic tourism asset, and smaller operators can be strategic tourism assets as well. So if they meet the criteria, then they meet the criteria, but you've got to remember that our initial response to COVID-19 with all the wage subsidies and the tax measures and that were there to support businesses throughout New Zealand, of which the tourism industry has accessed a few billion at the very least.
As has Waitomo. So the other two companies that you have approved, are they smaller operators?
Oh, look, I'm not going to get into the details about other companies, Lisa, because the announcements will be made as soon as we can make them. But every company has to pass the criteria, and we're satisfied that the other two companies have met the criteria necessary to be deemed a strategic tourism asset.
So did Discover Waitomo actually fill out an application form with all the required paperwork, the 2 years of profit and loss information and everything that is asked for in the official applications that just opened today?
Well, they would have gone through the process with the officials, and I'm confident that they've met all the criteria.
Another tourism-related story that we've been looking at is Air New Zealand. So have you spoken to them recently?
No, I haven't spoken to Air New Zealand. Grant Robertson is the minister responsible for Air New Zealand, so it would not be appropriate for me to tread on his toes.
Not even in your capacity as tourism minister, because obviously they're the ones flying people up and down the country.
Well, the thing is Grant Robertson is the minister who has direct responsibility, the shareholding minister, I think it's called, and it's just not appropriate for me to intervene on any of Air New Zealand's business.
Okay, so this Canberra bubble that's kind of been floated today, is that actually a goer, or is it someone just pushing the boat out? Because it seems that none of the official groups looking at the bubble are on board with this. What can you tell us?
Well, everybody, of course, would love to see a Trans-Tasman bubble as soon as possible, but that will take a lot of work on both sides of the Tasman, and of course it comes down to both governments being happy that it's safe for that bubble to occur. Now, I think it's not the Australian government that's been floating that idea, and it certainly hasn't been the New Zealand government. So I'm not really sure who is floating that boat. But it's something that we're working towards. But in terms of today's announcement, I'm not sure who's pushing it.
Okay, have you made any calls on it though? Because obviously Canberra has come out saying it's taking registrations for people who want to be on the fly.
Well, when you say Canberra, I don't think you're talking about the Australian government. And people are saying, what are we doing towards establishing a Trans-Tasman bubble, and can I put a date on it? The answer is, well, that would be inappropriate and wrong of me to speculate on a date, because businesses will be listening and they'll be wanting to make decisions based on speculation that may or may not prove accurate, because we just don't know.
But have we been planning for September?
Well, I'm not going to say that, Lisa. That's exactly the problem, is speculation like that will cause businesses to make decisions that may not prove accurate. I believe there's been another 8 COVID cases in Australia today, and if there are more cases over there, then that will set dates back even further, and businesses will have made decisions based on pure speculation. I think it's irresponsible.
Okay, so then it's July school holidays in New Zealand for people here then? Is that the deal?
Well, as I've said, and as we've said, that at the moment the travel restrictions have gone off on level 2, so domestic tourism is what it is. But again, any Trans-Tasman bubble will be at the agreement of both governments when both governments decide it is safe to travel.
Appreciate your time this evening. That is our Tourism Minister, Kelvin Davis.